Tamo junto, pessoal. Sejam bem-vindos a mais um Jovius Podcast. Dessa vez aqui é o sexto episódio e hoje eu resolvi trazer um cara que me inspira muito, não só pela parte da nutrição e do treinamento, que é o que eu venho fazendo aqui, acompanhando essa galera, mas também porque ele faz uma coisa que eu faço também, que é entrevistar as pessoas. Então, ele é como se fosse uma versão melhorada minha. Então, é com muito prazer aqui que eu tô com ele. O nome dele é Daniel Álvarez Garcia. E, hey, Daniel, so if you want to introduce yourself a little bit better.
Yeah, sure. First and foremost, Clesiano Neto. It sounds more natural to me than Dio.
Entendi, né?
Thanks for considering me. For me, it's a privilege. It's an honor to be worthy of a conversation. So thanks for that. Basically, I teach stuff. I'm a professor. I also am a coach. I try to be an athlete from a year ago from now in natural bodybuilding. I I like to do some scientific communication. I'm not a researcher, but I love that stuff, as I'm sure you also do, Dale. And basically, that's what I do on my day-to-day basis.
Yeah, basically, what I was telling them is that I admire you not only because of the scientific part of you publishing on social media, but also because I told them that you're like a better version of me because I'm trying to do the same path, walk on the same path that you've been walking on for these couple years because I've been following you and I know that you have a really good podcast and you've been talking to these guys that I also admire. So basically, that what I was telling them that I really respect you and it's such an honor for me to have you here. And yeah, man, thank you so much.
It's a two-way street, man. Like I told you, it's an honor, it's a privilege to be considered that way, to be thought about that way. And to me, it's really just a passion, as I'm sure we both share it. Just about learning, about trying to communicate things that we find interesting, walk our own paths, and really uh, walk the walk, as I think they say, not just talk, more so do the damn thing, the damn bodybuilding thing, and all this stuff. So it's my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I have to start off by asking you about your journey as an athlete. I met you because I was watching a podcast where you're talking about how you dealt with the hunger you're feeling in the process in the preparation for the bodybuilding show. And I would like to ask you, man, what has led you to become a bodybuilder?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question because I've been talking about bodybuilding, about nutrition, about training for years now. I'm a professor. I teach nutrition, also training in several universities, so on and so forth. So I suddenly realized that perhaps it would be a complementary experience to actually prepare for a competition to see if I have the potential. And that was just last year, precisely last year. I did my first IMBA competition in Mexico. I did well for my own surprise because I'm an anxious person and competing gets me terribly anxious, man. For me, it's the worst part. And this year I tried again because I wanted to go after the pro card. And that's what I did precisely. But this time I went to all the way to Argentina, which is a little bit far away from Mexico. I succeeded in getting the IMBA pro card. And the last competition I have this season is in the WMBF in Mexico. And again, man, it's for me it's more of a mental challenge because like I told you, I'm really anxious. I'm not really a chill person as I would love to be, honestly, like
I
other
can relate.
athletes. Yeah, it's that's the tough part, man. And on top of that hunger that you alluded, it gets tough because of that, because I don't know if you experience this, Dale, but sometimes food, sometimes a meal can be like a hug at the end of the day if you had
Yeah.
a rough day. But when you're in really low calories, when you're super fatigued, you don't have that. You have to find it somewhere else, someplace else. And that can get tricky. And more than managing hunger, for me, it's more accepting the hunger. Right now, this week, I'm doing a peak week. I have more calories, less training, all this type of stuff. So it's a little bit more chill. But the last couple of weeks, man, those have been rough because those were the digging weeks. And I think that's where you really question yourself, is this worth doing? There's no guarantee that I'm gonna place nothing, you know. It's perhaps I win a medal, perhaps I don't win anything, perhaps I just show up and great for showing up, but you're not good enough. And to me, facing all this stuff face to face, right away, straight to the eye, that's
Mhm.
been the scariest part, man. But I think I'm doing okay, all in all.
No, that's really nice. And why did you choose to go to Argentina? Like, I don't really understand yet. And I asked you that first question because maybe someday I think about doing the same. I think about at least in competing to try to feel how it is. And how is the process? Why did you have to go to Argentina, or why did you choose? How was it?
Yeah, for sure. My first competition was in Mexico. It was called Latin American Championship. So what a way to start, right? That was my first competition ever, and turns
Big
out it
one.
was a Latin American Championship. I think I should have started with something a little smaller, but it is what it is. So in that competition, I competed in bodybuilding and classic physique. I won both my categories in terms of height and weight, and then I got the chance to get the pro card in both. I didn't. I just won my classes. So I think that was a little bit of motivation. That was a little bit of fire, if you want to put it that way. And then my thoughts were, well, I think I'm gonna take a year to better myself, to gain some muscle, so on and so forth. But then I saw the natural universe, which was to take place in Argentina. I'm not a traveler, really. I'm not like this type of people that are all over the world in holidays or, I'm not really that. I'm also in my office working, you know. But somehow, for some reason, it kind of came to my mind, well, let's check how much would it cost. Let's check how realistic is it for me to go there because I think it would be a nice experience. And perhaps even in a bigger event, it could be more meaningful. So I don't know what got into me, man, and I actually did it. I actually started from calling the embassy to check about the passport requirements because some need to expire before 6 months, all this type of stuff. So I called them. I asked about the process, if I compete as an amateur, is it just a professional event, all this stuff. So it kind of developed, it kind of became a reality, and so I did, man. Why exactly Argentina? I couldn't tell you exactly, perhaps because it was the most similar to what I already done here in Mexico. And well, it was quite the challenge, quite the undertaking, and it went pretty well, man. Not for any other reason than that. I think just happened. I
Okay.
went with it. I was scared. I was scared shitless, man. I don't know if I can swear, but I was scared shitless because the travel, the anxieties, the fear of preparing yourself, the investment, not just time, effort, but money also,
Right,
because
right.
traveling is not really cheap. But that's pretty much it, man. I saw that it was gonna take place there. I saw it perhaps as a realistic opportunity. I took it. I don't know what got into me, and fortunately, it went well, man.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I just asked out of curiosity because, well, I wanted to know maybe someday if I'm going to compete, I have to study more about it. But yeah, the little that I know that I can compete here in Brazil before trying to go into these adventures in Argentina and other countries for sure. But one thing that I think about when I have this small goal, not a small goal, it's a big goal, but a small part of my dreams to do bodybuilding someday is because maybe I think it would help me to understand better my clients. So I don't know your degree. I think is in nutrition, right?
Yeah, it's nutrition in Mexico. Well, I'm gonna say it in Spanish. It's a first licenciatura. I don't know how
Licenciatura.
you
Is this
translate
in
it.
Portuguese?
Oh,
Licenciatura.
licenciatura. And then we have the maestría. I think in English it would be
Mestrado.
master's, maestrado. And
Mestrado.
then you have the doctorate degree, the PhD. I'm in the master's degree in training. That's where I currently trying to finish. But yeah, and it totally does, man. It totally gives you another perspective. It totally gives you brand new eyes to see the process, to understand your clients. And honestly, I think the most valuable um, piece that I've gotten from competing is to it's gratitude, man. Gratitude for my food, gratitude for being
Right.
I'm eager to train, gratitude for my day to day, all this stuff that we take for granted. I think in hindsight, for me, it's the most valuable
For
because
sure.
at least for me, it gets me to my limits, man. I know with experience, and should be a little bit easier because you know what to expect, but I think you should do it, man. You should, of course, start on a local competition.
Yeah.
There are several federations, but yeah, totally. Just knowing that you're gonna face perhaps some uncomfortable
Mental
things,
challenges.
some mental challenges, physical challenges, but at the end of the day, if it's worth it and it's something important for you to gain more empathy with your clients, to gain insight in life, for me, it's totally worth it if you view it from that side of things, man.
That's nice. Yeah, so I have to ask you something about nutrition, taking that in consideration that I really struggle with nutrition because of two things. First, because I'm afraid of bulking and get really bulky and not from muscle, but from fat. And also because I used to be a very skinny kid. I used to be very, very thin, lightweight kid. So when I started lifting and gaining weight, I kind of got like a little trauma of getting skinny again. So for me, the hardest part is to do a cutting. So I really want to ask you this because you're a nutritionist. So can you give me any tip or to anyone that is watching about nutrition, about getting in a cut? Like, do you think we should be in a certain percentage of body fat? Do you think we have to be at how to really do a perfect cut? Would you say don't have to be super deep, but just give a small tips like I should measure my body fat. Where should I start?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, and I hope I don't ramble too much. But if you want to cut, if you want to see muscle, well, first and foremost, you have to have muscle. You have to have some degree of development, and that takes time. And I think that's actually the most enjoyable part of bodybuilding when you build your body because you have sufficient energy, you are eager, you are excited to train, you see progress in your lifts. And that's really enjoyable, man. That's what I miss the most nowadays and in a contest prep because well that kind of gets to the side because you're trying to retain as much muscle as possible. So I think I understand your insecurities, your fears, because fitness it's a mental game, especially on social media. You see these ripped physiques all the time, which are really unrealistic. And I gotta tell you, man, even in my own experience, there comes a point where I'm not really I don't feel secure. I don't feel confident to look at my own physique. That's why I have my coach, which is my good friend Fernando. He helped me with all the stuff because my judgment gets all thrown out of the window, man. So in the bulking side of things, you don't really need to consume a shit ton of calories, but at least sufficient where you progress in your training, where you see constant progress, you enjoy training, and obviously in due time, you see some gain, weight gain on the scale and this type of things. Perhaps based on the really scarce literature that we have, something along the lines of 0.25, 0.5%, if you're really lucky and have really good genetics per week, is a
25?
good starting point, and perhaps 5 to 10% over your
5
maintenance calories. It's a pretty good starting point. It's not that much. Perhaps
Mhm.
that gives you the confidence that you're not gonna get super fat unless you go 50% over your maintenance calories. So don't sweat it, don't worry. And this part is important also in the psychological side of things, embracing the process, embracing that for now your physique is gonna look a certain way, but your attention, your top priority is your performance in the gym. And that's really cool, man. When you get out of the deficit of the contest prep. Because in contest prep, when you're trying to lose all this fat that you gain over the months, years, whatever, then comes another series of challenges that you look smaller. One thing's that in a weekly basis, in a monthly basis, you're gonna look leaner, you're gonna look ripped, you're gonna look insane. But not really. The first weeks, you just look smaller. You don't look leaner. You just look and feel smaller, and your clothes are like, well, what is happening? I don't understand it.
Yeah, that's what I
So
fear the
perhaps it,
most.
yeah, the mental game, man, it sucks, honestly. But it is what it is. I think a piece of advice, if it helps you, I hope it does. It helps the people that get to listen and watch this, is just to embrace the process in which you're at the moment, and also accepting that it's temporary. And then fitness, it's always like that, at least bodybuilding, let's say, not fitness, let's say bodybuilding. Then when you're bulking, well, you need to love and accept your body when you're bulking, where you're trying to maximize the muscle gain. When you're trying to losing fat, now you need to understand what that entails, what are the trade-offs for a fat loss phase, and be at peace with that. Because I think the anxieties that this whole bodybuilding journey can create in a person, to me, it takes away from your quality of life, man. When you don't know what to expect, you have this anxiety of either getting too fat or getting too small. It can be really tough, especially if you have, like we mentioned, anxiety, perhaps depression, even, which is my case. I've dealt with this type of stuff. So to me, with my clients, and for me also, the mental health side of things is as important, equally important as the physiological, as nutrition, as training, to make the process a little bit more sustainable, enjoyable, and obviously more productive. So my advice, my piece of advice to you would be just embrace the part of the process in which you're in, learning to accept and embrace your body as is. You don't need to change it. You don't need to be a pro. You don't need to be the champion to really be grateful because we have our extremities, because we have access to food, because we have access to a gym. You don't need any of that, man. And sometimes only when you are in absence of some of those things, which is like a contest prep, you learn to be grateful for that stuff, man. I don't know if that helps.
No,
I'm sorry
no,
if
I
I'm
love it.
rambling.
I love it. And this psychological part is really what matters in the end of the day because you see a lot of athletes that they prepare the whole year physically, but maybe if they're not good psychologically speaking, they cannot perform well. So yeah, I'll try to put that in my mind, and mainly because well, I'm afraid of being that skinny guy again to lose muscle in a better way of saying, but I have to think maybe that I've been on the same weight for 3 years, 2 years, 3 years. So at some point, maybe someday I'll have to change it, either by gaining weight or losing weight. And I think right now it's time to lose weight because it's been a long since I don't see that striations in my muscles. It's been so long. So yeah, I'll try this and and right now that I have your contact, bro, I'll be talking to you. Daniel, am I doing this right? And you're gonna have to tell me, man.
Yeah, of course, man. It'll be my pleasure. It's always nice to share
Thank you,
this
man.
really weird stuff that is bodybuilding.
Yeah. And we were talking about social media nowadays. And also, I had a hard time when starting. I mean, I'm still in the beginning of it, but before, since day zero, I had a very hard time because I never knew properly how to not be that guy that's gonna look like a scammer. Like you gotta do this and you're gonna lose 20 kilograms in 2 months. I try to stay away from that, but also I'm not the guy right now that like is just like you that is in this path so for so long that know exactly how to put yourself in front of a camera and talk to people properly in the scientific way. So well, what I'm trying to ask is how do you think you have also, because I was checking a podcast, you were, I don't remember the guys, but it was two guys. You were talking about social media and stuff, and how to be a better how to publish better in social media when it comes to exercise science. And I would like to know, man, if you have some tips, maybe for me to not be on that bad side, on that dark side of Instagram. That, well, I hate doing this. Maybe I'm judging, but I really don't want to mess up in this. Like, I really, if I'm on social media, is to do proper things and things that are actually valid. So how do you see this, man? Can you give us some tip on how to be a better communicator?
Yeah, of course, and I'm glad you talk about this stuff because it's not really um it doesn't receive as much attention. And
Yeah.
honestly, I don't have a big following. I'm not a viral content producer. I'm not the next Jeff Nippert. I don't aspire to be. Honestly, man, I know my boundaries. I know that my reach is really limited. I live in Mexico. I live in Latin America. So one of the first barriers that I encounter, which I'm sure you also do, it's language. Because let's say, for instance, I do an interview with somebody that speaks English. Even before asking about the information being shared, people ask me, when is it gonna be translated or why is it always in English? Well, it's because I cannot ask people, I cannot ask researchers to learn Spanish just for me and have a conversation. So that tends to bury me in the algorithm. So I don't have any aspirations to go viral. And really, it's not important. I think for me, at least, the reason why I do this, the reason why I try to share good information, I don't know if it sounds selfish, but the first one is for me to learn because we have this opportunity to connect with people, with researchers through social media and actually ask them about their papers, about their research, about their work. And surprisingly, they're happy to do so, which is, I'm the
Yeah,
first one surprised, man. They're really humble, they're mostly really accessible, and that's
that
super
is
cool.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, for real, man. Still blows my mind that they are that way because other people that perhaps are viral, have tons of followers, but don't share really good information. Well, some of them are kind of assholes
Yeah, I
sometimes,
know how
you
you
know?
feel. Yeah.
Yeah, so I try not to be like that, man. But anyway, I think if it serves as advice, for me, the first thing to really talk to about with yourself is why is this important for me? Why do I wanna do this type of work? What value do I find in this type of content? Is it important for me? And if you have the answers for that, I think you're good to go. If it doesn't resonate with people, if it doesn't go viral, having enough reasons, I think it gets you through all this. Because sometimes it can be frustrating, man. I get you if this has happened to you. It's frustrating, man, when you put all this work into, let's say, get some researcher to talk to you, then you upload, then you try to do some reels, then you try to do some content, and it gets completely ignored, completely buried in the algorithm and some other form of content, which is, I don't know, some sexualized individual, some misinformation. That's the one that gets to the top. Well,
Yeah.
it kind of it pisses me off sometimes. It frustrates me. But when I remember that this is important for me, that when I die, I'll be able to say, well, I did my best with what I had in my hands at the time. That's sufficient for me. Well, I keep going, you know? So I think most, mostly than, or other than tell you what type of content to do, I think it's why is it important for you? And what do you want to share with the world? What do you think it's needed in your community, for yourself, for your friends, for your clients, even? And once you have that established, I think you can begin to experiment, let's say with reels, with posts, with, I don't know, live streams, with a podcast, whatever it is. But once you know why is it important for you?
Right. Yeah. So the reason I started this is because I was doing articles reviews. I had a newsletter before. So I was writing every day, reviewing articles. And at some point I was like, well, I could talk to these guys. I've seen all these names every week, every day when I'm reading these articles. Why I don't contact them? And this was the most surprising thing that I've ever experienced. That I sent a message, and the first one was Martin Ruffalo, and well, yeah, it's still surprising me. So I really wanted to actually give a shout out here to all my professors and everyone that was here since day one. So because of you guys, I kept doing this. So a big shout out to my professors, mainly Milton, Thiago Rosa, Herbert, Jonato, todo mundo que contribuiu comigo desde o dia 1. So yeah, everyone, I feel so blessed, man, right now. And you, thank you again, brother. It's a really yeah. So I got some questions about, I asked you about nutrition, and I also have a question about training, if you can. Yeah. So basically, what I was doing was checking your podcasts. Some of them I knew before, and some of them I was trying to see. Well, how can I get some of the information he got from another researcher? So by talking to you, and one question I would like to ask you is about training. Is mainly because right now in Brazil is trending the low volume type of training. I don't know how is it in Mexico, but here in Brazil you kind of have this fight. Either you do high volume or low volume, and I would like for you, if you we could discuss a little bit on that. What should we classifying as low volume? What do you consider low volume? How do you see this?
Yeah, I think it happens in all Latin America, man. I've been
Yeah,
to Colombia. I was in a congress. I've spoken with people from Venezuela, from Argentina, and it's the same all over the place, man. And
right.
yeah, I think we can start with the paper, the Eneco. Also, I spoke with Eneco a while back in Mexico when he presented, and I also presented Eneco Vaz. You know, this famous meta-analysis that 10 to 20 sets, whatever. In that paper, they refer to as high volume when you go over 10 to 20 sets. So a moderate volume would be 10 to 20 typically, and a lower volume would be perhaps below 10 sets. So I think that's a good starting point
Per week.
per week, exactly. And if you take the non-published data by James Krieger, which I also had the privilege to talk to, then we would have to say perhaps below 6 to 8 sets per session would be low volume, and above that, high volume, just to have a starting point, to have a common ground. But I think it's, for me at least, nowadays, it's more, I play it more by ear. I don't go by numbers just for the sake of numbers. Because, for instance, I'm sure you're aware of these papers, the Zach Robinson and Josh Poland ones, the meta regressions, and also, well, all this work that's been published in the last couple of years, couple of months. Also, the Jay Grumert one, in which for which we know that perhaps more volume can reap more benefits, but we need to take into account the cost and the benefit of doing more volume. If this volume, these higher volumes are perhaps giving you, I don't know, pain, they're taking away too much of your time, of your day, well, even if they can give you more gains, more muscle growth, it's not worth it because it's not even noticeable. You cannot even measure it. You're having more pain, like I mentioned, and it's not practical, you know? Well, maybe in that case, it's just not worth it. So for me, it's more, for instance, right now in a digging phase of a contest prep, I try to be more conservative with my volume because I have less energy, because I have less resources, and I try to be more assertive. Though I'm gonna do just this couple of sets, but I'm gonna make them count. Because on the other side of the coin, when I have sufficient energy, sufficient calories, I feel better. I can get away with doing a little bit more sets, no problem at all, right? So it's more of a context type of situation. And nowadays, I don't necessarily jump into the conclusion that, oh, this is junk volume, because there's this term, you know. Maybe in a certain scenario could be a little bit too much, but in another one, it could be just what the people, what the person responds better to. So for me, nowadays, it's a little bit more relaxed in the sense that, okay, let's start with this number of sets. and then we'll know how you respond. Instead of getting anxious, getting like, oh, is it too much volume? Is it too little volume? Well, we'll know in due time. We'll know and we'll adjust from there.
Yeah, I was talking also with Martin Refalo about this volume thing, and I think this is one of the best things to think, like getting the baseline and not considering only numbers, but how the person is actually responding. And yeah, I think it's a really good strategy, man. Right now, because I was talking with my professor as well about this, and I think people nowadays they're so attached to what an article is saying that they're not thinking by themselves. They're not feeling the workout per se. So yeah, maybe right now I need a low volume, but at some point we're gonna have to add up some volume on that. And also a really good thing that my professor says is that the best workout for you is the one you never had. So I try to go into this and try to think that maybe there's not a solution for everything, and you gotta try and get the adaptations, in order to keep growing. Because if you're working out for so long, at some point you're gonna have to at least change a little bit your strategies, right?
Totally, man, because in the case of training volume, we need to take into account mediators and also moderator variables. Let's say dependent and independent variables. That could be biological age. It could be perhaps sex differences, perhaps because Martin Ruffalo himself has published some about this. Training experience, nutritional variables, how well rested or not the person is. A lot of things that we need to take into account before jumping into conclusions that this set volume is inherently too high or too low, because I think it's a worthless discussion just to get fixated on the numbers without taking into account both the mediators and moderator variables, because then we assume that we live in a vacuum, that 12 sets is the magical number, 20 sets is the
Yeah.
magical number. Well, not really. Also, what exercise are we talking about? What is the proximity to failure? What type of
What
session are we doing? How many sessions a week? A lot
what
of
muscle
things.
group you're trying to aim, right?
Yeah, of course, of course. And how this particular person responds in said muscle group, because that also could be a difference to take into account. And we cannot just say 12 to 20 and that's it. Perhaps somebody can tolerate well 30 sets, 40 sets, who knows, man, and that's totally fine. But other people can not go past 12 sets, I don't know, whatever it is, and that's also totally fine. But unless we try these things, unless we have a training log, some sort of biofeedback, then we'll know. And even then, unless we have ultrasound and unless we have, I don't know, access to biopsies, we are not going to be completely sure, man. But at least we have a direction to aim for.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, man, basically that was what I had, but I also asked my followers to send some questions. So, if we can just wrap up with these two questions I got, it would be awesome. So, yeah, thank you so much, man. Again, I'm really glad that we're having this conversation. And the first question is from a follower that I have that he's a businessman. So when I told him that I was going to talk with you, he got to the he didn't think specifically about training or nutrition, but the mentality, because he's a really good businessman, a big one, and he asked you, what was the biggest sacrifice you've had to make to reach this level of performance?
Meaning competing and getting brokered, this
Yeah,
type of stuff.
getting into
All right.
the best pro athlete that you are right now.
Oh, well, that's a tough one. And I would say being hyper focused on just bodybuilding. That's really tough, man, because bodybuilding it's 24/7. You cannot be in prep while you're in prep because you need to control all your meals, you need to control your training, you need to control. It's not like a performance-based sport like any regular and normal and real sport. Of course, bodybuilding is a sport, I'm just joking. Because in bodybuilding, if you don't follow your meal plan, if you don't follow the deficit, if you don't follow the weight loss journey that you need to do, well, you're not really gonna be able to compete at the level that you perhaps would want to. So I think being hyper focused on just bodybuilding and thinking bodybuilding 24/7, it's a big one for me because life goes on. You also need to take care of business. You also need to take care of your relationships, of your own mental health, of your own well-being, and that can be challenging to juggle all these variables. So to me, that's the biggest one, to take from the family, from the friends, from your work, to give it to bodybuilding. For some people, I must say it's not gonna be worth it. But if it's important for you, you'll find a way. But I think for me, that's the biggest one.
Nice. Thank you, man. And the other question is, well, he asked, what is the best workout split for natural people? I don't think we have a proper answer for that, but if you want to say something about it.
I would say the one you can stick to in the long term. But for me, it tends to change from a 3-day full body to a 4-day upper lower because of my schedule, because of work, because of the other things I do in life besides bodybuilding. And that blends well with all of that. And because it allows me to train a muscle group 2 to 3 times per week, these variables that are not necessarily the ones that are the most important. Perhaps we could think about volume and proximity to failure as the most important, above from adherence. But there is no best split. If you can build your own split that makes sense, works for you, and you can stick to it in the long term, that's the one to go. Not taking into account if you're natural or enhanced. Perhaps if you're enhanced, and also depends on what type of substance, because that's
You just
also
do
really
anything
tough.
and take your stuff. No, just
No,
kidding.
yeah, not really, because some people perform worse
Oh,
for certain. It gives them pain. It some the I just lost the
the
word.
joints, right?
Some substances, yeah, yeah, they have joint pain.
Right,
And some people, we tend to assume that people in hands can train like crazy and recover well. Not always. It's not always the case. So whether you're in hands or natural, it's the one that you can stick to that makes sense to you and allows you to progress in the long term.
right. So yeah, man. Thank you very much. And um, I have a final question every time I do this, and I want to keep asking people this. Right now is a personal question. Um, well, you are in a path that I aim to be. And if you could give an advice, if you could tell me something, it could be anything related to life, to the career, or anything else. If you just could end this and give an advice for me to become not only a good coach, but also a good person, it would be awesome.
Holy shit, man.
It can be in Spanish, bro. Te
You put me on the hot
entiendo.
seat. In español. Well, oh man, that's a really tough one. I would say find what values are important for you in life. That's the first thing that I would do. That I try to keep myself grounded because it gets tough. It gets tough for what we already have talked about. So if you have grounded values, let's say, I don't know, empathy, let's say whatever it is that is important for you, that can get you through the dark times when you don't really are earning what you need, when you're not performing well in the gym, when you are going through rough times. That keeps you going to have a sufficient enough reason. And for me, it has to be beyond recognition. It has to be beyond what other people say or think or whatever it is about me. It has to be from within. It has to come from within. And you need to you need to keep working on it. It's not static. You need to reinforce, you need to keep, let's say, reminding you and doing actions through actions that get you through the rough times. It's more so accepting what is, but not staying, not being sad because of what is, but taking action from what is. I don't know if I'm confusing you terribly. I'm sorry about that. But
No,
what
no.
I'm trying to say is finding what is important to you, remind you of that which is important for you on a day-to-day basis, because all these philosophies, all these things that we find on social media, this motivation for me are really empty because they come from a place of seeking recognition. When you find reasons beyond the recognition from other people to keep going, I think that's when you strike gold because it's gonna keep you going, man. Even if no one notices your path, even if you never get noticed, it's okay because it's important to you. And in our final days, when we can look at that in the eye, we can safely say, I did my best with what I had. I did my best. I think that's for me the way to go, man.
Thank you, man. It seems like what I've read recently from Chris Bumstead. I don't know if you saw, but he post recently about, well, he was in Mr. Olympia, and he posted something like, "When this is all over, could you say you gave your 100% when you had it?" So I feel like I felt the same, man. I felt the message.
Yeah, for I think Chris is a really great example because he values his family. He values
Yeah.
more that side of his life than just bodybuilding, and I think that's a lot that we can learn from him. And I think he's a really positive influence. I'm glad for
Right.
people like him to get the spotlight.
Yeah, and now Ramon Dino from Brazil, bro. Let's go.
Yeah, man. Of course.
So yeah,
Kill
man. No, thank you very much, man. Thank you again. It was awesome, and I didn't plan really to go really long, really deep on that, but it would be awesome if we could do this another time again, a part two, part three. I really like your content. I really like you, and mad respect for you, brother. Thank you so much for being here.
On the contrary, thanks to you, Dale. It's my pleasure. Whenever you want to chat, I'm more than happy to do so. And thanks for anybody listening, watching. I'm
Yeah,
really grateful for the invitation and anytime, man. Happy to do
yeah.
so.
So, e é isso aí, pessoal. Muito obrigado a todo mundo que assistiu. Quem sabe aí na parte 2 ou na parte 3 eu não venha hablando espanhol. Quem sabe, talvez. Então, obrigado aí todo mundo. Esse foi Daniel Álvarez Garcia, um grande exemplo, e todas as informações dele vão estar aí na descrição para quem quiser seguir e acompanhar o conteúdo dele, que eu acho que vale muito a pena. Então, brigadão a todo mundo. Thank you, man.
Gracias, Dale.
Gracias, hermano.